everybody. Hey everyone, this is Avani from Ecstatic Earth Arts, and I'm finally back doing my Friday lives. I was doing color magic 2 weeks ago. I forgot that it was llamas, so I had to do that instead. And then last week I was supposed to be doing color magic for green, and we had a big family emergency, and then I couldn't. I could not get on, unfortunately. So here I am back to do Color Magic Green. I work green for you today, so we can chat about green. And just in a moment, once I get myself completely set up here, for my little pre-show here today, I wanted to chat about, since we're talking about green, I thought we might talk a little bit about herbs, some herbs that are good to harvest in August, because who doesn't want to know that? Myself completely set up. There we go. Perfect. Hey, on Instagram, I can't quite, Alondra Phosphate. Thank you for being here. Today I'm here, we're talking about the color of green and using it in magic. You're joining me super early, so right now while we get started, I'm actually going to talk about, since we're talking about green, different herbs that are good to harvest in August. So this is the wrong paper. Shoot. All right. How am I going to do this? I am going to open it up on this screen over here. Hang in there with me. Oh, it can't be that screen. All right. I had the paper in here for this. Hey, Chuck Walcott. I'm going to be doing Color Magic Green. Hey, Stephen Woodward. We're going to be talking about color magic today. We're going to be talking about the ways that we can use it in our magic and the history of why green has all the associations that it does. I just realized that the paper that I thought I had for today is not. Oh, sorry, it's right here. Excellent, even better. So while we're waiting for more people to show up, since we're talking about the color green, I thought that we could talk a little bit about herbs that are good to harvest in the month of August, because it is harvest season. So let's chat. So I'm on the wrong page. So one of the first herbs that is really helpful to harvest in August is mint. Now I tried to pick herb, at least some of them are wild, and mint is a plant that is like super invasive, and once it's in a place, it just grows and explodes and goes like crazy. So you might have it growing wild, or maybe you're growing it on purpose, but August is a great time to harvest mint. Mint can be dried and used in money for prosperity and abundance, or you can actually use it topically to treat eczema if you make it into a salve, which is really cool. The other thing that's really great to harvest in August is sage, and everybody loves sage. Sage is really great for smoke cleansing, to burn it, or burning in incense, but it's obviously also delicious in cooking, especially for your harvest Thanksgiving meals. Sage is commonly used to season poultry. In fact, some of us don't even realize that we've tasted sage like a bazillion times, but because it's so common, but used often to season poultry like chicken and turkey. It's delicious. And also when used topically, so on the skin, sage can be actually antibiotic, which is kind of neat. And when you take it as a tincture, it can actually help treat acute low blood pressure. Super cool, right? So that's two. So sage doesn't grow super wild around here, but I know a lot of us witchy folk tend to grow it. Because we all want it for smoke cleansing, but it has tons of other great properties too. Third herb we're going to talk about, there's 6 altogether. Third herb we're going to talk about is lemon balm. Lemon balm is actually 90% sure in the mint family. And you can tell if a plant is mint by the stems, or if it's a mint family, I should say, by the stems. The stems are actually square, so you can feel that they have 4 sides to them. But lemon balm, in addition to just smelling delicious, it smells like lemon, like the name suggests. It is good taken internally for insomnia and anxiety. And salves are actually really good, or oil in an oil or in a salve. It's actually really good for cold sores. Hi, Facebook. I see that somebody is watching me, although I'm not sure who, because again, as usual, it's not telling me who you are, but I'm glad you're here. If anyone is here, if you want to drop the hashtag live in the comments so I know that you're watching, that'd be great. If you're watching on the replay, throw in a hashtag replay. It helps other folks find us, and that's really, really helpful. Right now, while we're doing our little pre-show, I'm talking about 6 herbs that are good to harvest in the month of August. Number 1 was mint. Number 2 sage. Number 3 was lemon balm. Number 4 is yarrow. And yarrow is it sort of resembles, it has really small, usually yellow or white flowers on it. Yarrow is a really wonderful anti-inflammatory, especially when you take it. Hey Chola, glad you're here. Again, like it doesn't even, it tells me that there's a person who doesn't say it to you, so I'm glad you're here. If you throw a hashtag live in the comments, that'd be really great. It'll help other people find this so more people can get involved and watch and enjoy live and ask questions and participate in all the things. Yarrow is an anti-inflammatory. And tinctures of yarrow actually can help soothe muscle cramps anywhere in your body or any sort of muscle. So that means that yarrow can also be used for menstrual cramps. It can be used for regular cramps, like in your muscles that you get from working too hard. Or I don't know if you're anything like me. This is like a random thing I get where like I get weird toe cramps, but only in the summertime, go figure. Yarrow could be really good for that. And as a salve used topically, yarrow is actually disinfectant, and it can be used to both slow bleeding and seal wounds, which is really cool. So that was number 4. Herb number 5 that is excellent for harvesting in the month of August is plantain. Plantain grows wild everywhere, especially where I am. It's like I've got a full apothecary of plantain growing in my yard right now as we speak. Plantain is actually a really helpful like home first aid herb to have on hand because it helps wound healing internally and externally, and it happens to be something that tends to taste sort of sweet. So children like the things I read online were saying that it can actually taste a little bit like caramel, especially when it's prepared in like say a tea. And when you drink it, it can help tons of different things, talk about wound healing, which means, hey, Ferguson, we're talking about the color Magick, the color of green today. And right now I'm just talking about, while we wait for folks to show up, my top 6 herbs that you can harvest in the month of August. We did mint, sage, lemon balm, yarrow, and now we're talking about plantain. And plantain has a slightly caramel taste, so it makes it really easy for kids to take. I don't know about you, but when I try to give my kids herbal medicine, they turn their noses up at it because, it's, not fake bubblegum flavored, but plantain you tend to have an easier time with because it has a naturally sweet flavor. And then my number 6 plant that I think is excellent to harvest in the month of August is red raspberry leaf. That's another thing that grows wild around me, raspberry/blackberry. Raspberry, as far as raspberry leaf, if that's something that you want to harvest, August is the last chance you have to harvest it. Generally, what happens is if you wait too long after this point, it will actually become extra bitter. So obviously, if you're making it as a tea, that's less than ideal. But typically, raspberry leaf is used to help support women's health and menstrual health and ease cramps and things like that and tone the uterus. I remember drinking it as a tea when I was pregnant for that reason. Again, if you're new to watch, please make sure you throw a hashtag live in the comments, or if you're watching on replay, hashtag replay, because it helps other people find us so more folks can enjoy and participate. And then about raspberry, it is especially delicious if you mix it with mint, which was the first herb we talked about, as tea. Super yummy. So that's a thing you could do. So those are my top 6 picks for herbs to harvest in August. And now let's chat about the magic of the color green, because that's what we're all here for today, right? So the first thing I always like to talk about in these color magic videos is the history of the color. And every color has a history, which is really neat. We often talk about how this color, black means power or black means protection, but why? And when we look back in history, it can kind of help us determine and understand how the colors got the associations that they did. And green is no different. So green, it's one of the ways that we can kind of study the history of something is to look at some of the common sayings that a color is in, like for black, soul black as night, or a black heart. In the case of green, we have things like the green-eyed monster. I think everyone's heard that phrase, referring to someone who's very, very jealous, or experiencing envy. And that actually relates back to medicine as it was practiced back in, I think it was like ancient Greece. And at that point in time, they believed that there were 4 humors in the body that were in control of all of the facets of our health and any injury or disease that we were experiencing, and that an imbalance in those four humors could therefore explain why things weren't right. And it was believed that jealousy or envy was caused by an overproduction of yellow bile. So the four humors were yellow bile, black bile, blood, and phlegm. Gross, right? And each of those four humors is also associated with an element, which is a whole other story. But yellow bile is associated with fire, if you're curious. So yellow bile was an excess of it was said to tinge the skin green. Therefore, green became associated with jealousy and envy. And then, really cool, in the Middle Ages, people actually dressed according to their status, their class, or their occupation. And in those Middle Ages, green was often worn by people who worked in the banks, merchants, and people who worked in finance, like bookkeepers, so on and so forth. So green, therefore, because it was worn by that particular class of people, then became associated with money and abundance because they connect. Or there's also in our culture the idea of green as being toxic, which I think is interesting. We don't tend to tap into that a lot, magically speaking, but I still thought it was sort of an interesting concept to explore, historically speaking, because of the story behind it. So obviously every dye that we create, like the dye that's in this shirt, or the dye that's in my bra, or even the dye that's in my skin, all has to come from somewhere. It's been developed over time, and people have done a lot of work to figure out what chemicals and what things create different colors. And green was originally created as a dye using oxidized copper, which is malachite, effectively. And it was very toxic. But in 1775, they created a different green dye made with a chemical called arsenite. Sounds toxic right off the bat, right? Because we all know what arsenic is now, but back then people didn't know so much. So in 1775, they invented a green dye with a chemical called arsenite. And previously, those green dyes that had been created using the malachite and the oxidized copper were pretty at first, but they tended to fade really quickly. Whereas this new dye was very brilliant and it tended to last for a very long time, so it was very exciting. But it turned out that it was also extremely toxic. So even today, a lot of the pigments that are used to create the green dyes, like in my shirt, are actually still really toxic. But at this point, it's inert, so we don't have to worry about it. But, if we were to go to the company or the factory where the shirt was originally made and try to dip our hand in that dye, it probably wouldn't go so well. But that little story is why when often we're like watching cartoons or looking at like graphics, why poison is often depicted as being green, because of the history of green pigment and green dye. And then finally, not finally, because we've got two more things I want. Actually, no, there's three things. I forgot I added one in the middle of writing this. So also we want to talk about why green is associated with money. Also, obviously, at least in the United States, money is green. And that got me thinking when I was writing this, like, why is money green? Well, I found out, and now you get to find out too. So originally, when paper money was first being printed in the United States, the only other color of ink that was generally available was actually black. And green was really hard to come by. So they were printing in green ink instead of black ink to help prevent counterfeiting. And even today, part of the reason why they still use green is for the reason that the exact shade that they use is actually really difficult to replicate. Obviously, some people do it because we all know that forgeries exist, but they're really rare due to the way that the bills are printed and the color of paper and the ink that's used. Later today, Later, as dyes and more colors were made, they ended up sticking with green because it was just easy to produce. And they found that the color tended to last a long time and it didn't fade. So in the future, though, it was easy to come by, but also because of all the things we've talked about already, that green is often associated with abundance and prosperity. And if it's on money, well, why wouldn't we want to represent those things? But also, like the question then becomes, well, why is our money still green? Why is it not blue or purple or orange? And the very simple fact is that the government said, well, it's already green. Why fix it? Isn't broken. So we still have green money in the United States today. I did find out in my reading that at one point in early America, there was actually another type of paper money that was like a golden orange color. I think it was called like a centurion note or something. I'm ashamed to admit that I don't know. My dad is like an avid coin collector, but I don't remember for sure. But there was once upon a time a different color money in this country, but it's obviously not used anymore. And then finally, the other green I want to talk about as far as history is concerned, because it's so particularly relevant to my audience here, is why are witches green? Anytime we see them in popular media or in Halloween decorations, witches are always shown with like green skin. Like, why is that? And it turns out that it actually is a more recent trope than I ever realized, because it actually comes from The Wizard of Oz, which was created in the 1930s. So at the time in the 1930s, color TV was actually very, very new. So the idea was that they were trying to use a lot of bright colors for the very simple fact that they could. Sort of like how early Star Trek was like super, super bright primary colors, because it stood out on TV and they wanted people to be able to see it easily. And it was really just like a celebration of the fact that they could show colors. It was exciting. So they chose green because it showed up well on screen, of course, but they were trying to come up with ways to make the witch appear otherworldly or mystical. And green was just the first thing that they landed on. But they were like, yes, that looks really good. Let's stick with that. Let's do that. And over time, the idea of the witch with green skin has just slowly become absorbed into our sort of popular culture. Sorry, I'm plugging in because I have an almost dead device over here, apparently. No, come on. No, come on. There we go. At least acknowledging the fact that, like, real witches exist. But, so the witch with the green skin is still a thing. But that's why. And then finally, of course, and I know that this is like a duh, but I saved it for last because I feel like it segues really nicely into the next part of what I want to talk about as far as the actual using of magic and what the symbolism of green actually is obviously, if you look out your window, you can see that in August especially, everything is green. Everything is green. So obviously green is associated with plants and the earth, because obvious reasons, it is green. So the etymology of the word green, which if you're not familiar with the word etymology, it refers to the origin of language and the origin of words, how we come by them. A lot of the English language is either Greek or Latin in origin. But the etymology of green relates to an Old English verb, growen, which means to grow. So obviously, just based on that, green refers to growth and life, and the cycle of life. So green represents new growth, especially if we think about, early in the spring, when we first see those little baby leaf buds on the branches that have that super bright, light green color of new growth. Super. And green, obviously, first and foremost, before all those natural dyes we were talking about earlier, started with chlorophyll, the material in plants that makes them green. And so therefore green represents hope and renewal. You think of like the greening of the earth after wintertime, the idea of everything kind of coming back to life. Likewise, it can also represent the idea of immortality. If you think of evergreen trees, they stay green all year round. So that theme of life is sort of the common thread in all of that. And then herbs, because herbs and plants are green and herbs are used for healing, green is also associated with healing as well. Another thing that you can use green for in your magic is to combat jealousy. We were talking about that earlier. Combating the green-eyed monster. I have a little note here I want to talk about because I think that many of you may or may not relate. I think some of you might be like, oh yeah, jealousy, sure, but like, when am I really actually going to need that? And Instagram is being special because my phone is hot for reasons I don't understand. If I unplug, will that help? Give that a second and see what happens. Well, anyway, Facebook, I'm going to keep going because Instagram only keeps going for a little bit. We got through most of it. But I wanted to talk about how in You might be like, well, as an adult and like a normal, like grown up functioning person, like why would I need to worry about jealousy? If you're anything like me or many pagan folk, there tends to be a lot of crossover in these two sort of subcultures. Practice non-monogamy or polyamory. And a lot of people who aren't familiar with polyamory think to themselves, well, I can never do that because I get too jealous. And the fact of the matter is that people that practice those relationship structures do actually also experience jealousy, but they don't look at it as a non-starter, excuse me. They look at it as an opportunity. They look at it as an opportunity for growth, to change, So when, their, significant other perhaps goes on a date or goes to hang out with another partner, sometimes our knee-jerk reaction is to be like, well, I'm afraid that they're going to leave me because they like that other person better. And polyamory sort of, encourages you to take that emotion and not necessarily accept it at face value and be like, okay, at the surface level, I am afraid that my partner is going to leave me. But when you dig a little deeper, often you find that the root of that issue is actually, why am I insecure? What reason do I have to actually worry about that as being a realistic possibility? So jealousy can actually be a really positive learning tool for growth if you can look at it and reframe it in that way. Now, I'm just using polyamory as an example because I know that's something that I've been able to relate to in the past. So I thought that it was a really useful illustrative way to describe it to you. But certainly, jealousy can be lots of things. It could be like, I'm jealous that my next door neighbor, has a brand new deck. Perhaps, the issue there is not the deck, but probably more likely, why does my neighbor next to me have enough money and I don't? So then it becomes an issue of prosperity and abundance. So, but that's just, just for example, why you might want to look at jealousy. And then finally, of course, we all know green is excellent for working with prosperity and abundance magic. Green is used for all manner of magic for attracting money and abundance due to its association with money and wealth, historically speaking, which we talked about earlier. And of course, it's also associated with fertility due to the greenness of nature, thinking of, plants and bearing fruit. So if you have any questions about using green in your magic and in your spell work, please feel free to throw it in the comments below. If you haven't yet, hit a hashtag live or hashtag replay. Throw that into the comments so more people can find us. And then while I'm wrapping up here to make sure, making sure that nobody has any questions, I actually have a few green things from my online store I thought I would show off. If you are interested in purchasing them, feel free to drop a comment or message me privately, and I would love to chat with you about it. So first thing I want to show you, this is one of my absolute favorite things here, actually. One of the most recent things that I made. Hold on, where's the other one? So these are some Green Man pendants. Like, how much more green can you get? I love these. So these represent the Green Man. The little caption on them says, the Green Man is a forest spirit image that is circulated through Europe and the whole world. He is a protector of the forest and a symbol of the earth. Mind you, I did write this. I don't want you thinking that I'm reading it because I don't know that myself. I just knew that it was phrased really well on here, and I didn't want to trip over myself. But the Green Man is associated with nature, obviously, and with growth. I love these. So I believe that these are, hold on, let me pull it up because I legitimately don't remember what the price is on them, and I don't want to misspeak. This is connecting. Oops. And then I have more of these. They're all the same price, so I'll show you them on loading this other thing. I also have some really awesome pan pendants that I hand painted. All of these first few items are hand painted items. So these are Pan, who's the Greek god of nature and wild places. As here, Pan is a Greek god and satyr, ruler of mischief, sexuality, wilderness music, and dancing. The world Pan, everything in Latin, which is of course not directly related to the whole Greek stuff, but I still like the idea of Pan meaning all, because I feel like Pan is a very inclusive god in that he rules a lot of things. $18. All of the hand painted pendants are $18. So here's Pan. Here's the Green Man. One of my favorite hand painted pendants, these green ones. And then I also have one of these. This is actually a tree of life. And that has some green leaves too. It says here, Yggdrasil, the world tree, is thought traditionally to be ash, oak, or rowan, depending on the specific culture, represents the shamanic cosmology of the spirit world. So there is that for green too. So All of these really cool, beautiful hand-painted pendants that I made myself, $18 each. If you're interested in one of these, feel free to shoot me a message. I also have, so this is a cool thing. I made this earlier this week with one of my kiddos. I haven't even listed it on my website yet. This is actually a sun catcher. So this is all like greens and blues. I told them that I'm going to name this Dragonfly Dreams. And I have some that are longer and some that are shorter. These shorter ones are $8 and longer ones are $10. Any sun catchers that I sell, and I do have a few more that I haven't listed in my shop yet, but they're not green. Any sun catchers that I sell, this is going to be, money that is going to go to my kids. Probably spending money. They're probably going to buy ice cream with it, let's be honest. But they were like, we want to make something to sell. And I was like, how about sun catchers? So that's what these are. So $8. If you like Dragonfly Dreams, shoot me a message. And then I also have, these are some spell kits, prosperity spell kits. These come with a little parchment roll that gives you instructions on how to use them. There is some dragon's blood ink here that I made myself by hand. A couple of patchouli incense cones. And then there's this little card in the back. I know you can't tell, but I hand painted and made it myself. There's some gemstones actually glued to it. The idea is that you're creating this this card that you can then keep in your wallet or in your purse that will attract money to you. So if you're really into that, these are $25 each. So if you like these spell kits, let me know. And then the last item I wanted to share with you is a pendant. So this is a beautiful wire wrap. This stone here, if you are interested in that, feel free to hit me with a private message or a comment below. But that said, it looks like nobody has any questions, so I'm going to wrap up for today. I hope that you guys are all having a wonderful Friday and that you have a wonderful weekend. Next week, I don't think I've got too many people here. Usually I like to poll people to see what they are interested in for a color for next week. If you have a suggestion, feel free to drop it in the comments below. If I don't hear from anyone, my plan is to do blue, which is actually statistically the most popular color in the entire country between men and women. So I'm going to do blue next. If you want to learn more about black or red or purple, I did those already. You can go back and watch some of them on IGTV or on YouTube. So feel free to check that out. And if you can't find it on your own, feel free to drop a comment, which I will see after the fact, and I will very happily send you that link. So hope you all have a beautiful weekend. Blessed be.